I didn't know that a single sentence, spoken casually in front of strangers, would expose everything my fiancé really thought of me. I only knew that when he laughed and said those words, something inside me went silent in a way it never had before. "You think this ring means something?" He laughed, lifting his glass. "It just keeps you quiet." The table froze for a fraction of a second. Then someone laughed nervously. Another person changed the subject. The conversation moved on like nothing had happened. But I didn't. I looked down at my hand, at the engagement ring he had given me 6 months earlier. The same ring I had worn proudly. The same ring I had believed represented commitment, respect, a future we were building together. And in that moment, I understood exactly what it meant to him. It wasn't a promise. It was leverage. I'm 29 years old. I'd been with my fiancé for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. We had a wedding folder. Venues, guest lists, deposits paid, a life already planned far enough ahead that it felt real and inevitable. And yet, in one careless sentence, he reduced it all to a way to keep me compliant, quiet, convenient. I didn't argue with him at the table. I didn't embarrass him the way he had just embarrassed me. I smiled when I was expected to smile. I nodded when I was expected to nod. I played my role perfectly, but inside something cracked open. Later that night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I sat alone in the living room staring at my laptop. I opened the folder labeled Wedding, Invitations, Contracts, photos we hadn't even taken yet, and one by one, I deleted all of it. He didn't know it yet, but the engagement was already over. A few days later, I would uncover the truth about the woman he'd been seeing behind my back. I would watch my entire future collapse in slow motion. And eventually, I would place a small box on a restaurant table between us, without opening it or explaining a single thing. When he realized that ring was no longer meant for him, his laughter would disappear. This is the story of how I stopped being the quiet fiancé, and how a ring that was meant to silence me ended up doing the exact opposite. Before that dinner, before the laughter and the words that changed everything, our life together looked ordinary in the way people envy without really understanding. I was 26 when I met him. I worked in software development, steady hours, a role that demanded focus and logic more than charm. I wasn't flashy, but I was reliable. I liked structure. I liked knowing where my life was going, even if it didn't look impressive from the outside. He worked in corporate communications, confident, articulate, comfortable in rooms full of people who spoke in buzzwords and inside jokes. He knew how to read a crowd, how to position himself, how to say just enough to sound important. When we met through mutual friends at a summer barbecue, he was magnetic. He made me feel chosen. We hit it off immediately. Easy conversations, long walks, the kind of early connection that feels natural instead of forced. Within a year, we moved in together. Friends commented on how well we matched. "You two are perfect together." I believed them. For a long time, things were good. We cooked together, planned trips, talked about the future in broad, hopeful strokes. He proposed after 2.5 years, a quiet moment at home, no crowd, no spectacle. I said yes, without hesitation. Looking back, the warning signs were small but consistent. He liked being admired, not just by others, but by me. He enjoyed having the final word in conversations. He joked about me being low maintenance in ways that felt flattering at first, then slowly felt dismissive, as if my calm was something he benefited from more than respected. His family adored him. His mother often praised how well he was doing, how impressive his career was. The pressure wasn't direct, but it was there. Subtle expectations about image, about appearances, about what a successful couple should look like. I tried to fit without losing myself. I didn't realize how much space I was giving up. As the engagement went on, he became more comfortable making comments at my expense. Light teasing, little jokes that landed just slightly off. I brushed them aside. Told myself every couple adjusts. That stress around weddings does strange things to people. What I didn't see then was how much he valued control disguised as humor, how much he liked the version of me that didn't challenge him, the one who smoothed things over, kept conversations pleasant, didn't push back in public. By the time we sat down at that dinner with his work friends, I was already playing a role I hadn't consciously agreed to, the quiet fiancé, the supportive presence, the one who didn't need much. I didn't know yet that I was about to learn exactly how he saw that role. And once you hear the truth spoken out loud, you can never unhear it. The shift didn't arrive with a fight. It arrived with comfort, the kind that lets people stop trying, stop listening, stop noticing the line between humor and disrespect. After we got engaged, he relaxed in a way that felt subtle at first. He interrupted me more often in conversations, finished my sentences like he knew what I was going to say better than I did. When friends were around, he'd tease me for being easygoing, for not needing much, for being low drama. Everyone laughed. I smiled. I told myself it was harmless. But over time, those jokes started landing heavier. He'd say things like, "She doesn't mind," before I'd had a chance to answer, or "She's cool with whatever," when decisions were being made that affected both of us. It was always framed as praise, as if my flexibility was proof of how well we worked. What it really meant was that my silence had become convenient. His work world bled into our home more as the wedding planning ramped up. Dinners with colleagues, happy hours that ran late, conversations I wasn't part of because I didn't share the same office politics or inside references. I didn't resent it. I just noticed how easily I became background noise in rooms where he felt important. His friends noticed it too, even if they didn't name it. They'd direct questions to him instead of me, ask his opinion about plans we were both involved in. When I spoke, they'd nod politely, then look back at him for confirmation. I started catching myself before speaking, editing my thoughts, waiting for pauses that never came. It wasn't fear, it was adaptation. At home, things were still calm, too calm. We didn't argue much, but we didn't talk deeply either. Conversations stayed surface level, logistics, schedules, wedding details. The more significant feelings stayed unspoken, not because they weren't there, but because there didn't seem to be space for them. I noticed his phone more, not in a suspicious way at first, just in the way someone notices a habit forming. Messages late at night, work dinners that felt more frequent, new names mentioned casually without context. I didn't accuse, I didn't snoop. I trusted him, or at least I trusted the version of him I believed I knew. Still, something felt off. When I tried to bring up how I felt sidelined sometimes, he brushed it off, told me I was reading too much into things, that I was sensitive, that everything was fine. And I believed him, or at least I wanted to. Looking back, I see how the environment was being set, how my role was being quietly defined. The fiancée who didn't rock the boat, who didn't embarrass him, who stayed agreeable in public and handled her feelings privately. By the time we sat down at that dinner with his colleagues, the dynamic was already established. The room knew who spoke and who listened, who joked and who smiled along. So when he laughed and said the ring kept me quiet, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from months of practice. And once that seed was planted, once I finally saw the pattern clearly, there was no going back to pretending it was harmless. The silence I had learned to live with was about to become impossible to maintain. The comment didn't come out of anger. That was the part that haunted me the most. We were sitting at a long table in a trendy restaurant downtown, the kind with dim lighting, tiny plates, and prices that made people talk louder to justify them. His work friends filled the seats around us, laughing easily, trading stories I didn't fully follow. Office politics, campaign wins, inside jokes that didn't need me. I'd been quiet most of the evening, not because I had nothing to say, but because there was no space to say it. Then one of his colleagues, a man I'd met maybe twice before, nodded toward my hand and smirked. "So, I guess you're officially tied down now," he said, gesturing at my engagement ring. People laughed. My fiancé laughed too. He took a sip of his drink, leaned back in his chair, and looked straight at me. "You think this ring means something?" he said, still smiling. "It just keeps you quiet." For half a second, the table went still. Someone let out an awkward laugh. Another person rushed to fill the silence with a joke about wedding planning. The conversation moved on, sliding past the moment as if nothing had happened. But my body didn't. It felt like I'd been struck without being touched. My ears rang, my chest tightened. I looked down at my hand, at the ring he had placed there 6 months earlier, and suddenly it felt heavy in a way it never had before. "It worked," I said quietly. He didn't hear me, or maybe he did and chose not to acknowledge it. He was already turned toward the person next to him, laughing again, perfectly at ease. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locking myself into a stall just to breathe. I stared at my reflection in the mirror afterward, trying to understand what had just happened. Was that really how he saw me? As someone who needed to be managed? Silenced? Pacified with jewelry? My phone buzzed. A text from my brother asking if I could call him later, needing advice on something. I told him I'd call the next day and slipped my phone back into my bag. When I returned to the table, I smiled when I was expected to smile. I nodded when I was expected to nod. I played my role flawlessly. The cab ride home was surreal. He was tipsy, animated, talking about his coworkers, about brunch plans, about nothing that mattered. I answered in single words. He didn't notice. At home, he went straight to bed. I stayed up in the living room, laptop open, doing nothing. Around 2 a.m, I opened the folder labeled Wedding. Invitations, venue contracts, guest lists, photographer quotes. I dragged the entire folder into the trash. Then I emptied it. The sound it made was soft, final. He didn't know it yet, but the engagement had ended that night. Not with a fight, not with tears, but with clarity. Wednesday morning arrived like nothing had happened. He woke up cheerful, made coffee, asked what I wanted for breakfast, told me about a dream he'd had. I watched him move around the kitchen, comfortable, unbothered, completely unaware that something fundamental between us had already shifted. "I'm not hungry," I said, grabbing my bag. "I'm heading to work early." He nodded, kissed my cheek, and went back to scrolling on his phone. At my desk, I couldn't focus. Lines of code blurred together as his words replayed in my head. It just keeps you quiet, over and over, each time landing with a little more weight. I tried to understand how long he'd been thinking that way. Whether it was a slip or a truth, he'd finally stopped filtering. Around 10, my phone rang. My brother. I answered on instinct. "Hey, remember that jeweler I used for my wife's anniversary gift?" he asked. "The one you helped me pick out?" "Yeah," I said. "He does custom work. You mentioned maybe upgrading your ring for the wedding. Want his info?" I went quiet for a moment, staring at my screen. "Yes," I said finally. "Send it to me, but not for my ring." There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" "I'll explain later." When the text came through, I called the jeweler immediately. He could fit me in that afternoon. I left work at lunch, drove to his shop, explained what I wanted. He raised his eyebrows, asked careful questions, took measurements, showed me options. When he quoted the price, I paid half without hesitation. On my way back to the office, I checked my email. A message from my fiancé. "Forgot to tell you, dinner with my boss tomorrow night. Probably late. Don't wait up." I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. He'd been having a lot of late work dinners lately. I'd never questioned them, trusted him, trusted us. This time, something felt different. That afternoon, I logged into our shared phone plan. It took seconds. I scrolled through his call logs from the past month and froze. One number appeared again and again. Long calls, 30 minutes, 40. Always when he said he was at work or out with colleagues. I copied the number and ran a reverse lookup. A man's name appeared. The same first name as the colleague from dinner. The one who'd joked about him being tied down. The one who'd smirked when my fiancé humiliated me. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Everything went very, very still. That night, I lay next to him in bed, listening to his breathing, wondering how many nights he'd done the same with someone else already in his mind. I didn't wake him. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because once you see the shape of the truth, you don't rush it. You let it reveal itself completely. Thursday evening arrived with a strange calm that felt borrowed, like the air before a storm. He left the apartment around 6, dressed sharper than usual. A cologne I didn't recognize lingered after he kissed my cheek. "Probably back around 10, he said lightly. "Dinner with my boss." I watched his car disappear down the street and waited a full 5 minutes before grabbing my keys. I didn't feel reckless. I felt focused. I drove to his office first. The parking lot was nearly empty, the building dark except for a few security lights. His car wasn't there. I sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, letting the facts settle instead of rushing past it. Then I drove to the restaurant he'd mentioned earlier that week when talking about his boss's favorite places. Closed. I tried 2 others nearby. Nothing. Each stop stripped away another layer of doubt, replacing it with something colder and clearer. On a hunch, I drove past the apartment building of the colleague from dinner. I'd been there once before, months ago, when my fiancé had asked me to drop him off after a work happy hour because he'd had too much to drink. His car was parked on the street. I didn't pull up close. I parked 3 blocks away and waited. At 9:30, they came out together. They stood by the car, talking, laughing. Then the colleague leaned in and kissed him. My fiancé kissed him back. It lasted maybe 2 minutes. It felt like much longer. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't feel anything dramatic. I took a breath, turned the car around, and drove home a different route. I wanted to arrive first. I wanted the space to be mine when the truth walked through the door. I turned on a single lamp in the living room and sat on the couch with a book I wasn't reading. When he came in at 10:15, he looked surprised to see me awake. "Hey," he said easily, "how was your night?" "Fine," I replied. "How was dinner?" "Good, productive. My boss is happy with the campaign direction." "That's great," I said. "What did you eat?" "Oh, just pasta, nothing special." "Which restaurant?" He paused, just a fraction. "That Italian place near the office." "The one that closes at 9 on Thursdays?" Another pause, longer this time. "Must be thinking of a different day," he said quickly. "It was the place on 5th. "The one that opens at 6, I said. "And you left at 6. He set his bag down slowly. "Why are you interrogating me?" "I'm not interrogating you," I said. "I'm asking about dinner." "It feels like interrogating." "Does it feel like lying when you answer?" His face flushed. "What are you accusing me of?" "I'm not accusing," I said. "I'm observing. You said you were at dinner with your boss. Your car was parked outside your colleague's apartment, the same colleague who joked about you being tied down on Tuesday." He didn't respond, just stood there, mouth open. "How long?" I asked quietly. "What? How long have you been sleeping with him?" "I'm not—" "Please don't insult me by lying right now." He sank into the chair across from me, eyes fixed on the floor. 3 months. 3 months. Half our engagement. "Is that why you made that comment about the ring keeping me quiet?" I asked. "Because you'd already decided I was the obstacle?" "I was drunk," he said weakly. "It was a stupid joke." "Was it a joke?" I asked, "or was it the truth slipping out?" He didn't answer. I asked the questions that had been lining up in my head all day. Did the colleague know about the engagement? Yes. Did his friends at dinner know? He didn't know for sure, but probably. That explained the silence. The way no one defended me. The way the joke landed and was allowed to stand. He started crying then, apologizing, saying he never meant for it to happen, that it just did. "It didn't just happen," I said. "It happened over 3 months of choices." Friday morning, we both called in sick. We sat at the kitchen table, drained, the sun too bright for the conversation we had to have. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want you to leave," I said. "The lease is in my name. You moved in after I'd been here 2 years. I'm asking you to go." "You can't just kick me out." "I'm not," I said. "I'm asking you to leave. You can pack over the weekend. I'll stay somewhere else. I need you gone by Monday." His mother called mid-morning. She'd heard something. His brother texted. Friends started choosing sides without having the full story. Some asked me to be understanding, to think of the wedding deposits, to consider counseling. I listened. I didn't bend. "What about the wedding?" he asked. "I'll cancel everything," I said. "You don't need to worry about it." "And the rings?" I looked at my hand, slid the engagement ring off, and set it on the table. "You can keep it. Sell it. I don't want it." He twisted his own ring, but didn't remove it. "Can we try counseling?" he pleaded. "No," I said. "Counseling is for people who come to you before they sleep with someone else." That afternoon, I packed a bag and went to my brother's place. He took one look at my face and handed me a beer. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I'm already doing it," I said. "I'm ending it." The escalation wasn't loud. It was relentless. Family pressure, friends' opinions, logistics unraveling. And through it all, something inside me hardened, not with bitterness, but with resolve. I wasn't quiet anymore. That night at my brother's place, after the house went quiet and the beer lost its edge, everything I'd been holding back finally caught up with me. I lay on the guest bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the last 3 years in brutal detail, every moment I'd brushed off, every time I'd told myself I was being too sensitive, every joke I'd swallowed because it seemed easier than pushing back. The ring, the wedding plans, the version of myself I'd slowly compressed to fit beside him. This wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation layered on top of it. He hadn't just cheated on me. He'd cheated while planning a wedding, while letting me sit at tables with people who already knew, while laughing about a ring that was supposed to symbolize commitment, but to him was a tool. Something that kept me compliant, quiet, manageable. That realization hit harder than the image of him kissing someone else. Because it meant I hadn't just lost a fiancé. I'd lost time, trust, and a version of myself who believed silence was the same as peace. Around 3 a.m, my phone buzzed, a message from his sister. "He's devastated. He made a mistake. Please don't do anything you'll regret." I didn't respond. Another message came in an hour later, a friend reminding me of the deposits, the guests flying in. How embarrassing it would be to cancel everything now. Embarrassing for who? I sat up in bed, heart pounding, suddenly overwhelmed by the weight of it all. The wedding wasn't just an event. It was a performance I was expected to complete, even after discovering I was being cheated on, lied to, and mocked in public. For the first time since Tuesday night, I cried. Not the quiet tears I'd trained myself to shed discreetly. Real, body-shaking sobs that left my chest aching and my throat raw. I cried for the woman who thought being easy made her lovable, for the fiancé who thought commitment would eventually earn respect, for the silence I'd mistaken for strength. By morning, my eyes were swollen, my head throbbing, my body exhausted. That was my lowest point. Not when I saw him with someone else, not when he admitted to cheating for 3 months, but when I realized how much I'd minimized myself to keep a relationship alive that was already dead. I understood something then with painful clarity. If I stayed, if I forgave this, if I went to counseling and tried to rebuild, I would be teaching him exactly what he'd already believed. That I would stay quiet. And that was the moment I knew there was no version of this story where we stayed together. I wasn't breaking an engagement. I was reclaiming my voice. The turning point didn't come with another confrontation. It came with clarity, the kind that settles in once the noise fades and the facts line up cleanly, without emotion blurring them. The morning after my breakdown at my brother's place, I sat alone at the kitchen table with my laptop open. Not to rehash the betrayal, but to anchor myself in what I knew, not what I felt. I needed the truth to be solid, undeniable, and complete, so I could stop questioning my own judgment. I went back through the details slowly. The late dinners, the unfamiliar perfume, the call logs, the car parked outside the colleague's building, the kiss I'd seen, him leaning in, her hand on his arm, the way it wasn't rushed or secretive, but practiced, familiar. That colleague wasn't a man. She was a woman from his department, the same one I'd met twice, the one who laughed too easily at his jokes, the one whose wedding ring I remembered because she'd complained about her husband during a work happy hour months earlier. Married. That piece settled last, like a final weight clicking into place. I pulled up public records, not to punish, not to expose, but to end the inner debate. The address matched. Her last name matched. Her marriage license was easy to find. This wasn't a fling that just happened. This was an affair that crossed boundaries on both sides, sustained by lies, convenience, and the assumption that no one would push back. That's when I stopped feeling confused. The comment at dinner wasn't just cruelty, it was confidence. He believed I would stay quiet because I always had, because the ring, the plans, the pressure of appearances had trained me to absorb discomfort without protest. And he was wrong. By noon, my phone rang again. His mother this time. Her voice was careful, measured, asking if we could talk. I listened as she spoke about stress, about mistakes, about not throwing away a future over something complicated. I let her finish. Then I said calmly, "This wasn't complicated, it was deliberate, and I'm not responsible for making this easier for him." She didn't argue. She didn't apologize either. But she went quiet, and in that quiet, I heard something shift. Not support, but acceptance. That afternoon, I emailed the venues, the caterer, the photographer. I canceled everything in under an hour. Deposits lost, plans erased, relief immediate. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to win or wound or teach a lesson. I had reached the moment where the truth didn't hurt. It liberated. He thought the ring kept me quiet. It did, until it didn't. And once I understood that fully, there was nothing left to debate, negotiate, or salvage. There was only the next step. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It unfolded in layers, each one quieter than the last, each one stripping away whatever illusion he had left. By Monday, he came back to the apartment to get his things. I wasn't there, just like I promised. I stayed at my brother's place, letting the space be neutral, letting the ending happen without another scene. When I returned that evening, the apartment felt different, lighter. His clothes were gone from the closet. His shoes were missing by the door. His toothbrush was no longer in the bathroom cup. On the kitchen counter, his keys lay next to a short note. "I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The words were too late to carry any weight. Over the next few days, the truth started reaching places I never intended it to. His family found out the real reason the wedding was canceled. Not the softened version. Not we grew apart. The truth. That he'd been having an affair with a woman from work who was married herself. That the engagement hadn't failed quietly. It had been dismantled by choices. His mother stopped calling. His sister sent one final message saying she understood now, that she wished things had been different. There was no attempt to defend him after that, no pressure to reconsider. The silence told me enough. Friends shifted too. Some reached out to check on me. Some disappeared, uncomfortable with the clarity of the situation. A few tried to play mediator, suggesting time, space, forgiveness. I declined all of it. I heard, through people who didn't mean to gossip but did anyway, that his relationship with the woman from work didn't survive the exposure. Her husband found out. Things got messy. Offices talk. Affairs don't stay contained once the truth surfaces. What had felt thrilling in secrecy collapsed under daylight. He lost more than me. At work, he was suddenly quieter, less confident. The charm dulled when people knew the context behind it. Not fired, not publicly shamed, just seen. And sometimes that's worse. As for me, I handled what I said I would. I canceled the wedding. I returned what could be returned. I absorbed the financial loss without dramatizing it. Money could be earned back. Self-respect couldn't. People asked how I was doing. I told them the truth. I'm okay. And I was. Not healed, not untouched, but steady. I didn't seek revenge. I didn't expose messages or screenshots. I didn't need to. The truth had its own gravity. Once released, it settled exactly where it belonged. I walked away without raising my voice, without pleading, without bargaining. And that, I realized, was the moment the power truly shifted. 2 months have passed since the apartment emptied of his things, and the silence that followed no longer feels heavy. It feels honest. I'm still living in the same place, same routines, same job. But the space feels different now. Less like something I share out of obligation, and more like something I inhabit by choice. Mornings are quieter. Evenings belong to me again. There's no low-grade tension humming beneath conversations, no pressure to be agreeable, no unspoken expectation that I keep things pleasant at my own expense. The ring sits in a small box in my desk drawer. I open it sometimes, not out of longing, but out of clarity. I read the engraving. It just keeps you quiet, and I remember exactly why I left. Not because of the cheating alone, not because of the public humiliation, but because I recognized how easily I had mistaken silence for strength. I've been asked if showing him the ring at that final dinner was too harsh, if I should have tried counseling, if I should have fought harder for what we had planned. The answer is simple. Counseling repairs communication when both people come forward honestly. It doesn't undo months of deliberate deception, and fighting harder for something that required me to be smaller would have been the real betrayal. I'm dating again, slowly, carefully, not looking to fill a gap, but to test what it feels like to speak freely and be met with curiosity instead of control. I ask better questions now. I listen to how people joke. I pay attention to what they laugh at and what they expect me to absorb. What I've learned is this. Love that requires you to be quiet isn't love. It's management. And commitment that thrives on your compliance will always resent your voice when it returns. I don't regret how I handled the ending. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't expose him publicly. I simply stopped cooperating with a story that diminished me. I chose clarity over comfort, truth over tradition, self-respect over appearances. The ring was meant to keep me quiet. Instead, it taught me how to speak. And once you learn that, you don't go back. Not for a wedding, not for a promise, not for anyone who needs you smaller to feel secure. I'm not the quiet fiancée anymore. I'm the woman who walked away when the truth finally spoke.